Hey friends, welcome to TechHarvesting. In today's video, we are going to cover a very important topic, whatever you do with computers, mostly when you do programming, but in other cases also, we need to learn Git. Git is a tool which helps us to manage our versions of our application. For example, if we're having a version 1 and a version 2, and if we make a mistake, we can go back and revert. And you can see all the different versions of our applications. This is mostly used in DevOps techniques when we use applications like when we're creating an application with React, Next.js, whatever we use, and that's what we're going to cover today. Also, we'll be covering GitHub, which is not GitHub, it's not the same as Git. We'll be going through how to connect a repository to GitHub, creating an Ssh Key, and multiple things like that. So let's get started. So to get started, I thought I'll show you an example of how you can use Git and how you would use it for which case you would use it, like what are the problems that Git would solve. So in here, for example, I have this application here. It's just a demo application and it has this main.js file. Just don't worry if you don't know JavaScript or anything. I'm just going to show you an example. So I have something in here, maybe console.log. I've saved it and I've closed it. So this is the version 1 of our application. So all our application does is it logs console, it logs hello, as I have given it in here. And just think that it's your application in here, that is big, so much folders and files, doesn't matter. Now the thing is that you created your project, okay, you have published it, it's live on the internet right now. But now you're going to go ahead and make a second version. So you open it up, you start editing your code, you will do something like this. You save it, you close it, and you think everything is working. The next day you come and you open up the file and you're like, oh no, I lost everything. I don't know it's working and I have made a big mistake now. How will I go back to my code that I've had long back, and how will I restore my code? All these things come, and that's a problem that all of us might face when you're not using Git. So the problem that Git solves for us is that it keeps track of our files, and we make different checkpoints in our project so that it will store everything, and when we want to revert back to the previous checkpoint, we can revert back and all our files will be restored. And we can also have different branches, like this is for version 1, this is for version 2. All these are things that we'll be covering in this video. So let us start right now. So now let's install Git on our system. All you need to do is to go on to git-scm.com. There'll be a link to this in the description. It stands for Git Source Control Manager, and you can go to downloads and you can choose your platform, Windows, Mac OS, Linux. I'll show you how to do it on Linux in this video. It doesn't matter if you're on Windows. All you need to do is click on download for Windows. There'll be so much options. Just hit next, go with the default, next, and hit finish. It'll install it for you. It's very simple. And on Mac OS you can use Homebrew. I'm going to show it to you how you can install it on Linux. So I have my Raspberry Pi SSH in here. So if you don't know what a Raspberry Pi is, you can run it from my previous video. You don't have to use a Raspberry Pi, just open up a terminal, and I'm going to show you an example in here. So I'm going to create a folder, so git-demo and cd git-demo. So I'll be doing everything in here. First, let's install Git. On Linux, all you have to do is sudo apt install Git. If you hit enter, it's very simple. It just goes ahead and installs everything. It's going to be done very fast. It's not a very huge package or anything, so I'll come back once it's done. So that was done. It did not take much time. So now let's have a look at what a project is. For example, right now I have a few files. So touch file 1.txt and file2.txt. So the touch command just creates a few files. If you want, you can just use your Explorer and create a new file. So if you just go right click and you could go new and select the type of file, something. But in here, I'm not going to do that. I'm just using the command in here. So once you've created your files, let's create a Git project in here. So your project is different from the Git project. It just tracks the changes in here. So a Git project is called a repository. So every project that you make, you'll have a Git repository in there, so you can track the changes. So to create a repository, all you need to do is to run git init. So we have already installed Git, so we have this command line option to create a new repository, and if you write git init and hit enter, You can see initialized git empty git repository and /home/pi/git demo/.git. If you're wondering what this .git is, it's just a folder that Git keeps track of these changes on. So for example, if you do an LA or ls-a, you'll get file1.txt, file2.txt, and you'll get this folder called .git. So if you do cd to .git, I mentioned .git, and if you do a LA or ls-a, you can see all these things in here. So these are the files that Git uses to manage our code. So we can just go back. So cd ... Okay, so that's how you create a project. That's how you install Git. Next, let's have a look at how we can keep track of our code. So right now we have created our repository, which is our project, our Git project. Now what we need to do is to add these files so that later if we want we can revert back. And this is like making different checkpoints. For example, you have your application and you're adding specific features. So right now you're not having anything, you just started. Next you're creating a new feature, so you create a checkpoint here like adding authentication. Then you create a checkpoint here and you're like adding some other feature. So you create these checkpoints. To create checkpoints, first you need to add all these files to the Git repository. So you can call as the staging area, where all the files that you've done, you're ready to commit, you're moving it to another area from your local system. So it goes from here, it goes to staging area, and from there you can commit the changes, which means you're creating the checkpoint. So I'll just show it to you right now. So if you do an ls right now, you can see I have these two files, and if I do git add dot, which means I'm adding all my files to the staging area where we can commit and create a checkpoint of our code. So now if we hit enter, it's gonna add everything, and now we're gonna commit our changes, which means we're gonna create a checkpoint. So to create a checkpoint, all you need to do is to run the command git commit. So git commit, and you can give a -m flag for message, and you can give some quotes, and you can give like first commit / checkpoint point. Hit enter, you can see the information. So what we did is two files had changed, which are these two files, and we created these two files. That's what it is. No insertions, no deletions. So we're not inserting any text into that file, and we not delete those files. Now a handy thing to use is the status command. So git status, it tells you whether your files are up to date, like it has been moved to staging area, or are you still editing and you have not yet made the change. So you can do git status. Now at first, if you have made the commit, you'll be like nothing to commit, working on clean tree. Now for example, I used the text editor called nano and file1.txt. If you're on Windows, you can just use Notepad. If you hit enter, it's gonna open up this. So I'm just writing like test text y, enter. So now I have made some changes to this file. Now if you do git status, hit enter, you'll see this is in red color, which means it's not yet being added to the staging area. But we that time did add, right? Well, the thing is that it just keeps track of the same files that you've added to the repository. So right now we have added all these files, but the thing is that we had changed these files. So we changed file 1. File2.txt is still correct, like we're not making any changes in there, but file1.txt has some changes. So it is not yet in the staging area. So it's like it's in the red color and it's like modified. So what we need to do is to add this again. So we can do git add. Instead of adding dot, you can do file1.txt, because dot adds all the files. We don't want to add all the files again, because you have already added the file2.txt. Hit enter, it's adding it. So we can do git commit -m added file1.txt. Hit enter, and you'll see one file change, which is our file1.txt, and one insertion, however you pronounce that, and which means that we had actually edited the file. So that's what we inserted. We inserted some text. So that's about adding the files to a staging area, which is like the place where you can make a commit, you can make a checkpoint. Then we made the checkpoint and we checked if that checkpoint is created, and using the status command we got to know all those information. This will become more clear when you do more projects, when you use Git with more projects. The next command that we're going to learn is Git Log. This command shows us all the commits that we made, all the checkpoints, so what we added. Remember we gave the -m flag? That's for telling what information, like what change we made or what's new. We can give information about that particular commit. So if we do Git Log and hit enter, you'll see the two commits that we made. First, we made the commit of first commit / checkpoints, and then we gave added file1.txt, and it shows us our email and password and all these things. So that's what you can do. You can find all the commits and get information about each of them. Now, another thing you could do is to run the command git show, and you can provide a part of this commit. So commit, this is an ID, the commit ID, and it's randomly generated. It's again, I think 40 characters. So you can just paste it in here, hit enter, and it will show you information about the particular commit. So Git Log shows us all the commits with some information, and Git show and the commit ID shows us all the information about a particular commit. So you can see the difference, what we made from the first commit and this commit, and what we did, the message, the date of the commit, the one who made the commit, and all these things can also be shown. So these are the two commands to find out all the checkpoints. So each checkpoint is called a commit, you'll remember that, and that's what we did in this one. Next is a very important part of Git. It's called branches, which means right now, for example, we're having this application, it's in the version 1 branch, and we're creating a new application, I mean another version, and we're not sure if it works properly. So instead of again going back and making a different revert and getting back the old information, what we could do is we can create a different branch. So that, for example, this is the version 1 branch, version 2 branch. So it's like the same project, but you're having different versions of the same project. So let's have a look at branches now. To do this, what you need to do is first run git branch and the name of the branch that you want. So for example, this is going to be version 2, and if you hit enter, it'll create a branch called version 2. Okay, so it's created a branch, but now we need to go to that branch, right? Like currently we are still in the main branch, which is the default branch. Okay, so now if you want to go to another branch, we're going to run the command git checkout v2. If you hit enter, it will just switch to branch 2, and now we are in the branch 2, I mean branch version 2, which means our code is still the same. If you do ls, you'll see the same files, but the things that if you make a change, it'll be different in the other branches, and it might not make sense. I'll just show it to you right now. For example, I open the file 2.txt, and remember this did not have any information, remember that. Now when we're making a change, for example, updated in version 2, can exit, Ctrl X, Y, enter, and now if we do a git status, hit enter, you can see again we modified the file 2, so we need to add it and we need to commit. So git add file 2 git commit -m added file 2 in, of course, made it file2.txt for better understanding, file2.txt in the branch. So we are in branch v2. Just for information, I'm giving all this information. So v2, if you hit enter, it's added. So now the thing is that this is different from our old branch. So if I'll show you one thing. You can do git checkout master, which is the default branch. So master. Okay. Now remember we made a change in the old file. So the file2.txt, we made a change while we were in the other file. So while we were in the v2 branch. Currently we are in the master branch now. So if I do a cat command, this is used to list everything in the file, file2.txt, and hit enter, you will see it's empty. That's because we have switched back to the main branch, so it's the master branch. So we are having different versions of our code, which is just files right now, but it's like we are having version 1, which is the master branch, so it currently has the old code. And now if we again git checkout to v2, oops, so we have switched to the v2 branch, and now once again if you cat that file2.txt, now we can see updated in v2. So it's like the old file is like the first edit, which did not have anything inside, is in the older branch, which is the master branch. When we make some edits, it's gonna modify the file, and now when we switch to version 2 and we made some edits, The thing is that it just changed, so the files changed. When we go back to the other main branch, again, there's nothing in there because it's completely separate. When we run the checkout command, it just changes the file to the specified version, specified branch. So that's the power of branches. We can have different versions of our code. Next, we're going to have a look at a very important topic, another one called GitHub. Now, the thing is that you might have heard of GitHub. In my videos, I give links to GitHub repositories in the description, but you might not know how to use it. So we'll have a look at that right now. And also, one thing, very important thing, Git is not the same as GitHub, and GitHub is not the same as Git. GitHub is a place where all the Git repositories are hosted. We can host our repositories on GitHub so we can share our code. For example, if you open up your browser and go on to github.com, you'll have to sign up for an account. It's completely free, of course. This is GitHub and it's managed by Microsoft, so you can just sign up for an account and you'll have your profile in here. So the thing is that all these, wait a second, I'll go to repositories, which are the projects. We remember that we created private repositories, which means in our machine. So this is in my machine. So now if we go back here, this is in the cloud. It's at GitHub. So these are different repositories that I've created. There are some private repositories, public repositories. For example, I'll go on to the TechHarvesting account. So if I go there, I have the repositories for my YouTube channel. So all the videos I do are in here. So for example, I click on this MongoDB tutorial. This is a repository. I have the code in my computer also, and I'm pushing it to GitHub so that in GitHub, so the other students will be able to view it. Other people who want to view my code will be able to view it. They can come here and they download the zip file. They can download the code. They can view all the files in that, so you can see this whole thing. So that is GitHub. That is a place where you can share your code with others. So now we are gonna go ahead and set up a GitHub account, which you can do by yourself, and we'll have a look at some of its features and how we can push from our own local instance of Git. So we have our files in here and how we can push it to GitHub. So first, let's create a Git repository. So we need to hit the plus button in the top and hit on new repository. Okay, so now we can choose the account. So I'm not going to choose this. I'm going to choose the TechHarvesting account in here. And you can give a name for your repository. So right here, I'm going to give it as Git tutorial. You can give any name for the repository, doesn't matter. And description, I'm just going to give it as Git tutorial at TechHarvesting. Next, you can make this public or private, doesn't matter. I'm going to make it public. I want everyone to be able to access my code. And just leave all this, and we'll be covering this Git Ignore topic soon. And just leave all this and hit create repository. And you can see that it's created a repository. And now what we can do is to push from our own computer to GitHub's servers. So for doing that, here are the commands that we should do. This just shows how we can create a new repository. No, but we already have a repository. So we're going to push it to GitHub's repositories on the cloud. So for doing that, one thing you must do is to go into your settings, and you can go on to SSH and GPT keys, and you'll need to add a new SSH key so you'll be able to access it properly. So to generate an SSH key, all you need to do is to run SSH-key gen and hit enter, and it will show all this information. So enter the file in which you want to save all these things, hit enter, go for the default. I already have one, doesn't matter. I'm just going to show you how to do that. Enter passphrase, just leave it as empty, enter, enter, and I'll show you something like this. Just leave that, go here. I'm going to delete this one, yes, and now we can add a new key. Click on this add new SSH key, and the command that I just ran works even on Windows. Okay, I've tried it out. Give a title. I'm just going to give it as Raspberry Pi, and for the key, what you need to do is you'll get this thing right here, this path. Just copy that, and I'm just going to nano it. You can use Notepad, and you get all these things in here. So you'll need to copy that. The better choice was using cat actually. So let's catch that file. And you get all this information. Copy this whole thing. Right click to copy from the terminal. Paste it in here. So what we can do, what we're doing is that when we want to push, it's one of the they use it to push, like for example, if somebody had the code and we don't want them to push to our repository, like they have their application, we don't want them to push it to our application, right? So this just helps us to authenticate. You can add an SSH key. You have to give you a password. My browser has saved it for me. And yeah, so it gives you the name and the security type is SHA-256 and the key. So we can use this to read and write your repositories. So we can close that. And now let's add these things. So the first command that we're going to do in here is to use Git Remote Add Origin. So the Git Remote command helps us to configure a remote repository. So this repository on GitHub is not on our own machine, it's hosted in the cloud. So what we can do is to Git Remote Add, and we're going to give a name for this. So you can give this as GitHub Origin. It's going to be unique between the other origins that you have, and you can give a name, the URL for that. So you can just copy that command from there, paste it in here. I'll just show it to you once again. I'll just review it. So we are using Git, and then we are adding a remote, like the remote URL, and to add we use the add command. You can also remove it. I think it's remove maybe. And origin, which is the name of the remote that we want to add, and we can give the URL. Now it doesn't matter if you don't know what the name is, you don't understand. I'll just show it to you right now. Hit enter, and if no errors came, it's working fine. So we have added GitHub into our project. Next thing we want to do is to git branch -m main. So we're just switching to the main branch. Hit enter. That's working properly, nothing crazy in there. And the next thing is the Git Push Command. This helps us to push to our repository on GitHub. This is also a very important command when you want to push stuff to GitHub or to push some other place. You can also use other services like GitLab or Bitbucket, but GitHub is the most popular one, so we are using that. Copy that command, paste it in there, hit enter. And it may take a few seconds. It's just gonna take our code, push it to the GitHub, but it's just asking some information, give it in there. So first we'll give it the username. If you want to know your username, you can just go click in there and you get your username here, sign in as Naseel. So username, I'm just gonna give that, hit enter. Password, enter in your password. Oops, I always mess up my passwords. Hit enter, and it's gonna push it. And it asks us the password because we are given our SSH key, so it works perfectly. Sometimes there are other ways also, like if you don't give the SSH key, it might open up a browser window and ask you to log in with GitHub. That's also fine, but this is the most secure way to do it. Next, you'll see all these things information. It means it's working well. If you go to GitHub and if you refresh right here, you will see file1.txt and file2.txt. Awesome. The thing that we did, we had a local repository, we pushed it to GitHub. That was very simple. All we did is we added this thing, the SSH key, that we don't have to do it again once we did it for our profile. And then we added the remote, we added the branch, and then we just pushed it, gave our password and our email, and that's it. It was as simple to push it to GitHub. Next, I'm going to show you a topic called .git ignore. It's a file that you'll create. So the thing is that sometimes when you're creating projects, there might be files that you don't want to commit. Like you have a file, it's a secretive file, or maybe you have some env variables which are supposed to be kept secretive, you should not share with each other, maybe API keys and things like that. So what we want to do is to not push it to GitHub so that others will not be able to access it. So to do that, it's very, very simple. All you need to do is to add a file in the root of your directory, which is git demo. And then if I do an LA right here, you'll see I have this .git folder, so it's there where you should add it. And the file's name is going to be touch.git ignore. Hit enter. And if I do an ls in here, ls-a or LA actually, that's because the files that start with git, files that start with dot are hidden. So this .git ignore file. So you can do a nano.git ignore, and you can give the files that you want to explode in here. So first let's create a file tree. So we can add a file in here. So we can do git, no, not git, we can do touch file 3 secret.txt. What this does, it's just creating a file. We did it so many times right now. And let's go on to our git ignore, and let's add the file file3-secret.txt in here. Control X, Y, enter. Let me just see if that's what I named it, file3-secret.txt. Yes. So now what we did is we just added the name of this file to our Git Ignore. So we can just git add dot Git Commit -m, and the message I'm gonna give right here is gonna be added and Git Ignore and secret file. Hit enter. Created this. Now we need to push it to GitHub to see if this file has been ignored. So this file is not done. We can also do a git status actually. You can see nothing to commit, work and clean, blah blah blah. And we can do a git push or dash. Wait, let's just go up and get the command. Git push -u origin, I guess. Yes, origin main. So if you remember clearly, we gave this origin name. So that time if we renamed it to something else, we can rename it here. Origin is just like a unique identifier to find it out where we want to push it. We could have different origins to push. We gave the name as origin in here. We keep GitHub in here, whatever we want, and this is the branch that we want to push it to. Hit enter. Username again. Password. And now if you refresh, the thing is that we should find the same files in here. There should be no differences. So if you refresh in here, you should not find the file 3. Yeah, of course Git Ignore will come, but if you look in here, we ignore the file 3-secret.txt, so it's not in here. So that file 3-secret.txt is in our own local repository and it's not in GitHub, so others will not be able to access it. And while we're here, I also want to show you a feature of Git called Git Clone, which means from GitHub, for example, we want to download a repository, for example, this one right here. So what we could do is to go onto a terminal. I'll just create a new folder, so cd mkdir test, cd test. And I want to get all these files in here. And I don't want to download a zip, like go here and download zip and extract, nothing like that. We should go here, hit the code button. You get this URL right here, right? Just copy that. Go back here, run git clone, just to clone the repository. So whatever is there, we're gonna get it onto our machine. Paste the URL, and where do you want to clone? If you don't give anything, it'll just create a folder called git-tutorial, which is the name of our project, and it'll clone it there. That's not what we want. I wanted to clone right in this folder. You could give test, so it'll just create a folder inside this folder called test and do that. We want it right here, so you put a dot, hit enter, and it'll do everything there. So if you do an ls right now, you'll see all the files. Awesome. We'll go to /git. Oh, what did I name it? -demo, I guess. Wait, let's see. Yeah, this is where we were. So that was about cloning repositories. We can download from GitHub, or we can also use GitLab or Bitbucket, and we keep it in our system. And I also want to show you a special feature of Visual Studio Code. In case you're a programmer, you might find this useful. So what you can do is to go ahead and open up VS Code, and you can open up a folder. I'll just open TechHarvesting. I have created a demo folder. Now what you would probably do is, like, if you had the application in here, let's wait for it to load. If you had the application in here, you would just open up a terminal and you would do all the commands, git init, git add dot, everything you would do in here, right? The thing is that GitHub has, VS Code has this GitHub, this Git integration, which helps us to do everything from here itself. So it has a GUI in here instead of working with the command line in here. So you can do initialize repository. It's going to create a repository. It's the same as running git init as we did in the beginning of the video. Then you can see all the changes. We can now add the changes, stage, so you can stage. It's adding everything to the stage changes, which is where all the files are ready to be committed. So you can click on this tick to commit and give a message. So test commit, hit enter, and it'll create a commit. If you look at commits, you will see all these things. Test commit. It's like a very good GUI for like finding out everything. You can create branches. Click on plus to create a new branch. You can see all the information about a particular commit. Everything can be done within this place itself. And in my first video where I installed VS Code, I had actually shown you this extension called Git Lens, which gives some more features. For example, when you're editing a file right here, gives you like the CU, means you made the commit a few seconds ago, and this is the message you made, and some information about the commit, and it just shows some things like that, which is very useful for us when you're programming. You could also integrate all these Git features into a normal application. For example, if you're using React, if you create React app, it should initialize a repository there. Like you would find the .git ignore file, and if you looked here, you would see all these things. So that's something that React also does. So whichever kind of application, even if you're not creating an application, Git is a very useful feature. Even you can just keep track of your documentations in docs in there. Everything could be kept track with Git, and that's the use of Git. That was it for this video. We learned about Git, connected to GitHub, and a lot of stuff today. And thanks a lot for watching till the end. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!